I guess it was bound to happen sometime. We're going to talk about the murder house. Good afternoon. So, you know, there's all these weird parts of real estate that I don't like to talk about. One of them is like stigmatized properties. I don't really like to talk about it because it's not it's kind of odd and kind of depressing. I like to typically be upbeat, but you probably wouldn't know it if you've watched any of my other videos. Um, so I was, on the internet and I was looking around and we had this article that came up and I had forgotten about the story. But let me bring it to you. I don't know. Do you remember this? It was the Watts family. This fellow was cheating on his wife, or wanted, I don't know, whatever. But anyway, he ended up murdering her and his two young children. And that was in Colorado. And I suspect it was in 2018 or 2019. So anyway, they had a house and it became really like, well, now that someone's been murdered in the house, what do you do with it? And so I just wanted to go through like the progression and my thoughts um and just get through it. So and this was kind of important to know the time. So this was in 2019. This article showed up out of Denver, or this broadcast, and said that the lawyer said that the family hoped that the future of the property could one day help battered women or possibly become a park for the community to gather at. The family did not wish to financially benefit from a potential sale. And so then it says stickers on the door notify the public of the property's pending auction. Locks have been changed and the interior has been emptied of belongings, repainted, and cleaned. Stuffed animals, candles, and balloons are continuously placed at the doorstep of the home as a memorial. It says records obtained by CBS 4 show Chris and Shannon Watts still owed nearly $350,000 on their 5-bedroom home. Neighbors in the Frederick community suggested that home be scraped, with the land being developed into a memorial park. CBS 4 was told by city officials and realtors the chances of that happening were unlikely at this time due to zoning concerns. And then it goes into what a stigmatized property is. We'll come back to it in a little bit, but it says Colorado state law prohibits realtors from notifying potential buyers of murders, deaths, and other psychological concerns that may impact the sale or valuation of the home. And it's quoted John Holston of Windmill Real Estate in Fort Collins said the details of the murder in the Watts family home wouldn't legally be disclosed to interested buyers unless prior consent was given by the sellers. So then it says, however, due to the high publicity of the Watts murders, simply typing the address into a search engine online would reveal the Frederick home's past. Now, I agree that you should do that on every house. But let me go here and show you what happens when you type in the house in Google. You can see it here. It shows the house, and the first listing is from Zillow. Second listing is from Trulia. And then you finally get to an article about what's going on with the house. Realtor.com is like fourth place. And then you've got morbid tourism. So I don't really know that someone searching would automatically make the connection to this particular property. So that was in 2019. Then in 2020, there was this article on Realtor.com. It says 1 year after the Netflix documentary, murderer Chris Watts' home remains in purgatory. Now, it says the primary reason, and I thought this was interesting, the primary reason is not what most might assume, deep squeamishness at the idea of inhabiting a home that was the site of a notorious murder. No, instead, the home is now haunted by wildly prohibitive finances. The 4,200 square foot home in the Denver suburbs where Watts lived with his family has become a local tourist attraction, drawing carloads of looky-loos who stop to take photos or even attempt to break in several times an hour. And the homes may continue to remain empty for as long as there's a $6 million lien on the property that is owed to his dead wife's parents. The new owners of the address could be forced to assume that debt on a home estimated to be worth only about $716,000. Now, that's pretty good home there. After the crime, Shannon's parents, Sandra and Frank Ruzick, sued and won a $6 million wrongful death lawsuit against their son-in-law. That amount was applied to the home in the form of a lien. The local homeowners association also has liens on the property. However, Watts is still the owner of the property, even though he owes $349,938.09 on the mortgage, according to the Weld County records. He and Shannon Watts purchased the newly constructed home for $399,954 in May of 2013. It says, after the murders, the home underwent foreclosure. It was put up for auction, but it wasn't purchased within a year of it going up for sale, likely due to the liens, so the county removed it from foreclosure. It says the foreclosure is not proceeding at this point, says attorney David Owen, whose firm, McCarthy and Holthouse, is representing the lender. It's on hold. To sell it, the creditors owed money from Christopher Watts would need to put it back up for foreclosure. They include the mortgage lender and the local HOA, but the liens may not get extinguished in a foreclosure, says Clark Dre, a Denver-based bankruptcy attorney. No one has any incentive to do anything, says Dre, who has no affiliation with the case or the home. No one is interested in taking responsibility for a property with a $6 million lien. To get rid of the liens, the buyer would have to settle with Shannon Watts' parents in the HOA. The buyer would need to either come up with what was owed, or persuade the Ruzicks and the HOA to accept a lower amount. There's no good answer for this. These situations are so rare. And then they talk to a neighbor and says, in the meantime, the house remains empty. And the neighbor says it's not kept up, who lives 2 doors down from the Watts home. While it isn't boarded up or obviously vacant, it's just weeds overgrown and the grass is dead. 3 or 4 cars drive by every hour, usually with out-of-state license plates, to stop and take photos. Recently, some folks stopped by with a ladder they used to get into the house. Police are often called because true crime aficionados are trying to break in. It's still going on, especially with the rollouts of the Netflix documentary and other specials, says Burr. At least one of his neighbors left because of the attention surrounding the house. It's worse on the weekends. There will be people in the middle of the night. And so this isn't good, right? I mean, going through this. So I looked it up on realtor.com, and you can see like the map doesn't show a picture. And 5 bedrooms, 4 house, 4,100 square feet on a 6,000 square foot lot. But if you look right now, I mean, this is 2022. This is February. In the property history, it doesn't have a sale after the 2013. So it's still sitting there empty. Now, you don't want an empty house. That's going to cause all kinds of problems. I don't know why, but when you don't live in a house, it goes downhill really quick. So I wanted to show you the Missouri statutes. I know it's not going to be very good because my camera box is going to be in the way, but this is on Missouri properties. It's the statute says physically impacted real property defined. Disclosures to buyer not mandatory. No cause of action for failure to disclose. So, we have seller's disclosures. I think they have them in most states, and you have to, as a seller, fill that out. But you don't have to disclose certain things. And one of those things you don't have to disclose is if something's been murdered or someone's been murdered. So it says here, the fact that a parcel of real property or any building or structure thereon may be psychologically impacted real property or may be in close proximity to a psychologically impacted real property shall not be a material or substantial fact that is required to be disclosed in a sale, exchange, or other transfer of real estate. And then it defines a psychologically impacted real property. We call it stigmatized property. It's defined to include real property in which an occupant is or was at any time infected with AIDS, basically, or diagnosed with acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or with any other disease which has been determined by medical evidence to be highly unlikely to be transmitted through the occupancy or of a dwelling place, or real property which was the site of a homicide or other felony or of a suicide. No cause of action shall arise, nor may any action be brought against any real estate agent or broker for the failure to disclose to a buyer or other transferee of real estate that the transferred real property was a psychologically impacted real property. So there. Now, here's the like we went over this real quick, but here's the search. The top results are just showing the property. You would have no idea that there was a a murder in the home. And then in the map, I just thought it was interesting. We talk about technology, and a lot of times it's with negativity, the way it's gotten, social media and whatnot. But look at this on Google Maps. If you look, this is where the house is, okay, but it's blurred out. You can go down here at the end of the street and look. Now, this was, to be fair, it's a nice neighborhood, right? I mean, these are nice houses. Now, to be fair, this was taken in 2012, according to the map. So I'm sure this area is all built up by now. But I wanted to show that to you. Now, let's get into some of the questions that I had, or the thoughts, because I'm kind of intrigued by this in a certain way. I'll go over it. Number one, in Missouri, we aren't required to disclose stigmatized properties unless the seller would want us to, and that's kind of strange because the umbrella for stigmatized properties is pretty large. And what can affect one buyer's judgment on the purchase of a home might be something completely different than someone else. For example, a house that is said to be haunted might not bother someone, but a suicide does. So you really never get into you really never know what's going to trigger a certain buyer as far as what they wouldn't be, what they would say no to. What's funny is we do have to disclose if if we know that meth had been produced in a property, but not if somebody's been murdered. So. The line that caught my attention is this. The attorney who's not representing any party in the proceeding says there's no good answer for this. And, that's where I've kind of focused my channel is, you have these neighborhoods, and then you have something like this happen, and the neighbors end up dealing with it. And so, what's the best answer? Originally, the family of the deceased envisioned some sort of community charitable work or effort, but the house is in a subdivision, and I'm not sure neighbors are going to want to be put in a position of continual remembrance as much as they may already be. There's this odd pull here because I know that someone would buy the house. I have no doubt. It's a 4,000 square foot house in a pretty nice subdivision. It's thought that the house is worth at least $700,000. The pull is that so many buyers right now are desperate for housing, and now we have this house sitting vacant, but it definitely has some issues attached. Just because one group wouldn't buy it, I'm quite positive someone in America that has that money would buy that house, and they would buy it just to live in it. They wouldn't think anything of it. How do you get a $6 million lien removed? What's the order? Because you have the mortgage and the HOA dues also having liens on the property. The parents of the deceased have the property tied up. So it's and I'm not criticizing the parents. I don't want you to think that. It's just, what do you do in this situation? How do we get this resolved? It's not benefiting anybody right now. Definitely not benefiting the community. So what do you think would be the right thing to do? Put a comment in the comment section below. I'm leaning towards just tearing it down the house and making it a small park. If you happen to buy it as it stands, you're always going to be involved in this odd tourism where people are constantly curious enough to drive out, drop off flowers and toys, and take photos. And then look at what this terrible event does to a neighborhood. The other neighbors who had nothing to do with the murders are stuck dealing with it. The social contract has been broken here. The neighbors are stuck with an eyesore that has attracted break-ins. They're being held captive in their own neighborhood in this situation. And it reminds me of the Great Recession in the real estate market around 2008, 2009. You had these homes in the middle of neighborhoods owned by financial institutions with no real incentive to take care of them like a typical homeowner would. My concerns are heightened as I know that instead of financial institutions taking back homes through foreclosures, they've spent the past couple of years buying single-family homes in neighborhoods around the country. Will these institutions take care of their inventory any better than the banks did in 2008? And so that's kind of where I'm at. Is it's not good to have this house sitting there vacant. It's doing nobody good. It's definitely not doing the community any good. And a decision should be made at some point, but also there has to be some understanding, in my opinion, in the law that says that, when you have a bankruptcy, there's a procedure you go through, and whether or not you agree with how that goes, it's solved. It gets solved in a way. If you run a business and you go under, there's a court ordered process. But in this case, the court ordered process of the $6 million lien or judgment is causing many, many other people to be impacted by this who ordinarily wouldn't be. And so I don't know. I don't like these kinds of things in neighborhoods. This really does get to me because, you're hurting that fabric. You're hurting the fabric of the subdivision, and certainly there should be some way to get to a faster resolution. We're in 2022. This situation, I believe, happened in 2018, maybe early 2019. So it's like there needs to be some sort of closure. With that, though, I'm going to head on out. Like I said, I'm curious. What do you think? Leave me a comment, and maybe we'll figure out the best way to go forward together. With that, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.